Welcome to the Finance Magnates Blockchain Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel McIntosh, and this week we spoke with Dave Sutter, Head of Platform Strategy at TradeIX Limited, about how TradeIX has created a platform that they hope will be adopted by, quote, a host of different parties within the trade finance ecosystem. So we're just going to jump right in. Dave Sutter, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you.
Oh, thank you. So, Dave, why should the world care about trade finance technology?
There's a lot of very, very exciting things happening in the trade finance space today. It's typically a sector of financial services that's overlooked for some of the more quote-unquote sexy sectors like consumer and retail and digital payments. But it's one of the largest and most macroeconomically important sectors that we have in financial services, and that's not changing anytime soon. And kind of despite the importance, its technology and the infrastructure that it operates on today is some of the most antiquated, disconnected, and inefficient that we have in all financial services. So what we're seeing is really a broad industry effort to rewire and reinvent the technology and the infrastructure upon which the industry runs. And I think we're going to see the industry start to shift and change for the better because of that rewiring. And it's very exciting to be a part of a team that's on the forefront of that.
What is TradeIX?
Yeah, absolutely. So TradeIX is an enterprise software company that provides an end-to-end platform for trade finance powered by distributed ledger technology. We're a team of ex-banking executives, enterprise software experts, as well as individuals like myself who grew up in the blockchain and DLT space. And we've really come together with the mission of rewiring trade finance technology and infrastructure to the benefit of all parties involved in that ecosystem. So we provide a platform that's open and API-driven and helps banks and their clients both automate and streamline their trade finance activities, as well as connect that ecosystem of banks, buyers, suppliers, technology providers, and others. That's a little bit of background on us. We're an early-stage company. We have currently 45 employees with operations in the U.S., Europe, as well as in Asia. And we're a little bit under 18 months old as a company.
Oh, wow. So very new then. And can you tell me about the TIX platform?
The TIX platform, or TradeIX Platform, in longer form, has four main components. And these components can be utilized very flexibly by a whole host of different parties within the trade finance ecosystem. Today, we primarily offer solutions to both large financial institutions as well as corporates engaged in trade finance activities. Those four components, as you said, are the applications, the developer, toolkit, composer, and core. The application layer is exactly what it sounds like. It's the layer of the platform where all the client-facing solutions sit. So these are developed by ourselves. They can also be developed by third parties, as well as our current clients, like banks or corporates, can build their own apps. The developer toolkit provides a whole library of trade finance-specific APIs and microservices that allows users to build their own solutions, to carry out very efficient and rapid integrations, as well as plug our services and offerings into existing solutions. The composer is what we call an orchestration engine. So trade finance is, by its nature, a very complex dance of a lot of different parties being involved, similar to an orchestra. And composer is where all the rules, business logic, and workflow is managed. So it allows users to automate very complex multi-party trade finance transactions from a single interface. And then lastly, core is the distributed ledger piece. This is somewhat of the operating system for the platform. It
Mm-hmm.
provides a very standard smart technology infrastructure that helps aggregate and standardize data across the platform, as well as connect the platforms and the participants that use them to others within the trade finance ecosystem. So Core is a little bit like the Internet of Trade, if you will. It's an open protocol that helps or allows the real-time exchange of trade data and assets between parties within the ecosystem.
Okay, I see. And then about the core, the blockchain part of the platform, is it based off of a blockchain or is it using another kind of DLT?
Yeah, so we have several different implementations of different distributed ledger blockchain-based technologies.
Mm-hmm.
The one that we focus most of our time and efforts on is the Corda protocol that's offered by R3, which is a consortium of over 100 financial institutions, regulators, and technology companies. We've experimented with a lot of different blockchain and DLT protocols, and from our experience, have really found that Corda is the best fit for purpose in terms of trade finance. And that belief led and blossomed into a much stronger or a larger partnership with R3, and we're now currently working with them on several pretty exciting projects.
Can you tell me a little bit more about those projects?
Yeah, absolutely. So the primary one, the one that's public, is called Project Marco Polo. And this is a consortium of 20 leading financial institutions that's focused really on the creation of a new technology infrastructure for trade finance. In the first phase, focused on open account trade, so receivables finance, supply chain finance, and derivatives thereof. The consortium is really a collaborative project between all of these financial institutions, and there's several different work streams within the project. It kicked off in end of Q3 last year, and we just completed successfully our first proof of concept with all the 20 banks and are now moving into a pilot phase with all of them. It's a very exciting initiative that we ourselves and R3 are providing the technology for.
Okay, so you're already in the pilot phase then. So can I ask then, since it's operating on a few different kinds of blockchain technology, like if I wanted to buy TradeIX tokens, is that possible? Like can they be traded as other cryptocurrencies can, or how does that work?
So we're using DLT purely in a enterprise manner. So we have no native digital tokens, like something that you may have heard of, like ICOs or something like Ripple that has a native digital token. We actually don't have any of that. And there's some very specific reasons for that, but there's no way to buy TradeIX tokens, fortunately or unfortunately.
Right. So can you tell me what are those reasons that you decided to go with a blockchain that isn't that you can't trade tokens for?
Well, so I think, before I dive into that, it's sort of important background, which is that we're primarily a trade finance company, not a blockchain or DLT company, right? So we use distributed ledger technology because it's a very good technology solution to specific issues that have to this point been unsolvable or intractable within trade finance. But DLT and blockchain is just a piece of the overall solution. So it's really the convergence of cloud technology, artificial intelligence, open APIs, modular microservice-based infrastructure, along with things like DLT that provide overall value for the end user. The reason why we don't go with the native token is that, frankly, there's just no real need or use for it within the space that we provide solutions. Outside of that, anytime you get into that the token space, you run into some serious regulatory issues.
Right.
And I think the SEC is going to start coming down hard on a lot of these ICOs, which are essentially, in most cases, the sale of unregistered securities. So we don't have a use for it, and if we did, it would be, I think, in my opinion, a pretty risky decision on our company's part, just because of some of the regulatory uncertainties.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So on TradeIX's website, it's written that the trade finance solutions on our platform will unlock billions of working capital that has not yet been accessed by financial institutions or alternative funders. So how exactly will the TradeIX platform unlock this working capital?
I think there's really four main pieces to that, four main drivers of being able to unlock this working capital and more broadly provide better, more intuitive, more automated solutions to corporates involved in trade finance. That would be connectivity. So helping banks and corporates better connect with one another. So banks can connect to new sources of origination, new sources of financeable assets with a lot more ease and a lot more cost effectively than they could in the past. Meaning that they can service more corporates and meaning these corporates get access to more trade finance, which is something that's very much needed in the market.
Right.
The second would be around transparency. So the distributed ledger technology does provide superior transparency and visibility into the underlying commercial transaction and the data against which the lender would be making their lending decision. So banks and other lenders involved in trade finance have more access to data and thus can make better, more informed, more targeted financing decisions, which ultimately helps unlock that working capital for those corporate clients. The next two would be around standardization and automation. DLT really provides a nice standard technology infrastructure. If you look at other industries where standards have really done a lot of good, a primary example would be the internet. Something like TCP/IP or SMTP, a standard protocol that allowed a seamless exchange of data for a specific business purpose. The lack thereof in trade finance has been a serious barrier for both corporates and banks acting in the space, and distributed ledger technology through that standardization helps connect all of these parties to, again, help corporates that need the working capital solutions better and more efficiently connect to banks offering those solutions. And then lastly is automation. So through the use of business process automation and workflow automation, both with regards to distributed ledger technology, using smart contracts, for example, and then things that have nothing to do with DLT, just basic workflow and business process automation. It helps banks do a lot more business with less resources. And that's critical for them to expand their financing activities and thus, again, providing more and better solutions to their corporates.
TradeIX isn't the only blockchain-based platform that's been kind of emerging onto the scene over the past year. There was a collaboration between IBM Japan and Mizuho Bank, and another one between Deloitte, HKMA, and several trade finance banks in Hong Kong. So how is TradeIX working to ensure that its platform becomes the standard platform in the industry?
I think there's a few things that differentiates us from any other solution or provider out there on the market. And first and foremost would be our team and the experience that team has. Anyone that's spent any amount of time in trade finance understands that a lot of the issues that we need to solve actually aren't technology issues. So having a team that's run some of the largest trade banks in the world, that's built and scaled some of the largest trade finance technology platforms in the world, that has a proven track record of success working with both banks and corporates on very large trade finance programs and software deployments. This gives us sort of the experience to make sure that the solutions we provide are actually solving a problem. So we're able to navigate the market. We're able to provide real meaningful, valuable solutions instead of just sort of being like a lot of blockchain companies, which are really a solution in search of a problem. We understand intimately the problems that the market faces, which allows us to better address those issues. So I think the team and experience sets us apart. Second is we have an open model. So a lot of the other initiatives out there are really focused on building closed destination applications. And, as history will show, the creation of network effects is really driven by the openness of that network. And our open model, the network of networks model, I think sets us apart and is from the great traction we've gotten already, has been a proof point that model is something that's very scalable and very attractive to others in the industry. The last piece is that we're working with all of the strategic players within the space, including those 20 large financial institutions in Marco Polo, but also a countless number of other corporates, technology providers, ERP providers that are really key players in the trade finance ecosystem. And by starting with them, it helps us achieve scale and network effect much quicker than some of the other initiatives out there. So those are the main things that I see us differentiating on. The last thing I'll say is I don't think it's going to be a situation where one provider or one network rules them all. I think that this market is going to evolve much like the internet did and operate under a network of networks model where you have individual networks that are connected by an open infrastructure. And that's something that we're working on making happen with our partners and clients. So I think the team experience, our model, and then the openness of our network is what's going to help us differentiate and gain the adoption that we need in the industry.
And Dave, can you tell me what are your hopes for TradeIX throughout this year? Tell me what you think, where you'd like TradeIX to be by the end of 2018.
Yeah, the primary goal and really the only goal over the next year is to continue to create very successful, very happy clients. There's a lot, especially in the blockchain space, a lot of theory, a lot of vaporware, a lot of very ambitious ideas, but none of those will actually come to fruition. None of that theory will become practice unless we can create happy, successful clients. And so our number one goal over the next year is to continue to get more programs, more deployments live, and to get more happy, successful clients so we can write case studies, so we can actually prove to the market that our team, our software, does what we say it can do. And if we do that, then 2019, 2020, we'll see that network effect really become self-sustaining and become somewhat of a snowball effect where the ecosystem will start to grow and sustain itself on its own. But over the next year, we really need to seed that network. And the way we do that is by creating very successful, happy clients because they're your best salespeople.
Yes, that's very true.
There's nothing better than a client who advocates for your solution. I think that's our number one goal and should be over the next year.
Can any aspects of the TradeIX platform be adopted across other industries?
I absolutely think yes, and it's on our roadmap. I will say, really over the next 12, 18 months, we really want to stay pretty laser focused on the industry and the space that we're in today, which is trade finance and specifically on the open account side. But moving into the future, the platform